Well, good evening once again. Thank you for joining us here tonight for this Newnan-Coweta Chamber of Commerce and Coweta County Republican Party Forum here at Canongate on White Oak. Thanks for joining us for this forum for a local race coming up on the March 5th special election, and that is, of course, the runoff for House Seat 71. Tonight's forum is hosted, as I said, by the Newnan-Coweta Chamber of Commerce Public Policy Committee and the Coweta County Republican Party. Our thanks to Joe Beeman, Chairman of the Coweta County GOP, and Tony Sinclair, the Chamber's Board Vice Chairman for Advocacy. Gentlemen, if y'all could wave, thank y'all very much for hosting this forum tonight. Also, I'd like to give special thanks to Canongate Golf and White Oak, Canongate at White Oak here. Really appreciate this. Is a wonderful venue to host this forum in. It's obviously a lot closer to the district than the chamber offices or some other places we could have held it, so we really appreciate that. Special thanks to Tony Frankie, who's the club manager here at White Oak. Thank you very much for everything. And Sharon Shemansky also, just want to mention, who is the vice chairman for the Chamber of Commerce, also Canongate person. Thank you very much for this. It was absolutely wonderful place to hold tonight's forum. Tonight's forum, of course, and the people we should recognize most tonight, features two candidates. We have David Stover and Tom Crimes to my right. They are running to fill the unexpired term of Robert Stokely. These two candidates were in the six-person open race on February 5th with no winner in that race with 50% plus one. These top two vote getters face each other off in this year's March 5th runoff. We appreciate both of you joining us tonight. We most of all, I can speak on behalf of everyone here and our hosting organizations. We appreciate both of you stepping forward and running for this important office. Thank you very much. That's tremendously important, and we appreciate your devotion to this community in doing that. Our forum tonight is intended to give these two candidates a chance to speak to you, to distinguish themselves as two candidates running in this, and to draw distinctions between them. We appreciate them doing that. We appreciate you, our audience, being here tonight. Many of the questions tonight's meeting are going to be similar to those asked in our forum in January. And tonight's gives those two candidates an opportunity to clarify themselves to voters, all the voters here and voters across Coweta County in this two-man race. The Chamber is neutral to the candidates we have here tonight. Our organizers are, and this forum will remain neutral to our candidates. The questions asked tonight will be applicable to all candidates equally. We would also ask that all of our guests with us tonight here at White Oak respect that neutrality. We know that many of you here have very strong feelings on the positions that you'll hear and the issues you hear. May feel strongly about the candidates as well. But please, if everybody would hold their applause or hold any other demonstration or remonstration as we go through tonight's forum, we'd appreciate that. Just hold that till the very end. Our format's going to be very similar to earlier chamber forums and Republican Party forums. Each candidate will be allowed a 2-minute opening, 2-minute closing statements. Our candidates will have up to 1 minute to respond to a series of questions, and depending on what we feel as moderators, we may even allow 2 minutes in a couple of the questions we feel are particularly complex. After the second candidate gives his answer to a question, a 1-minute rebuttal will be allowed if the candidate selects. Our candidates will be signaled when you have about 10 seconds left. I know both of y'all know this, and just don't stop what you're saying right then, but just, if you could, just sort of finish your thought as we go along. And with that said, we're going to move on to our opening statements. I want you both to tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're seeking the House 71 seat, and the issues that are most important to you. And we're on a coin flip going to start with Mr. Crimes.
Thank you, Dean. Welcome everybody tonight. I appreciate you coming. Every time we have one of these forums, the weather seems to be a little tough, so I appreciate you coming. Thanks to Canongate, thanks to the Runoff Party, and everyone for being interested. Whoop. Sorry about that. Most of all, I would thank the supporters who showed up to help get us to this level. And the most important of all is my wife and her unending support in this, and my children wherever they may be. Real briefly, I'm Tom Crimes, running for the House of Representatives for District 71. I grew up in Columbus, Georgia, and went to school at Georgia Tech, graduated there in 1990. It taught great discipline. It It helped me in all my future endeavors in that I played football there as a walk-on and learned to allocate my time and be passionate about things, and it's followed through with the rest of my life. I've moved to Coweta in 1994. My wife was a public school teacher. We lived in the same house we moved in at that time, up in Canongate. She's a public school teacher now for Northside Elementary, and enjoy hearing all the stories there. One of the great things from being from Coweta County is back at that time, they had a volunteer fire department. It was right down the street from our home, and that was the first thing I did when we moved in. I joined up with the fire department. I did that until the program was done away with in, I think, 2005. It was a great opportunity to meet the community and step out and see who I could help when people were in need, to see if we can do something to make it better. I've started my business in 1997 as a commercial general contractor located in Newnan, Georgia. Almost 17 years, I guess. We've built projects like the City Hall for Newnan. We've built some VA clinics. We've built the Piedmont Cardiac Building, just to name a few. We're really proud of what we've done and the jobs we've created doing that. We've created hundreds of jobs ongoing in these businesses, and then temporary jobs while the construction's going on. It has been a great way to spend the last 17 years. When I started my business in Coweta, I joined the Chamber Board. It has been a great opportunity to reach out and meet some great people. All the business leaders that have made this community what it is, I have had the opportunity to meet with them, and I will rely on that in the future. I appreciate it, and I guess I need to wrap it up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stover.
Thank all you guys for coming tonight. It's good to see everyone again. And many of you I don't know, it's good to see your faces as well. I appreciate your willingness to come out tonight and hear what we have to say on the issues. That really means a lot. I will not forget that it's what the citizens have to say that matter most, though, in this seat. It's not about me, it's not about him, it's about you guys, and that's what really matters. Thank you to the Newnan-Coweta Chamber of Commerce. Thank you to the Republican Party. Thank you, Dean, for moderating this event as well. You always do a great job, and we appreciate what you do for the community. My name is David Stover. I'm the conservative Republican candidate for House District 71. If elected as your representative for House District 71, I promise to listen to the citizens of the county. This is, again, not about me. I will be of the people and for the people, not of the government and for the government. I will support public education, school choice, charter schools, but I will hold them all accountable for the funding that they receive. I believe we have the right to keep and bear arms. I will protect that right. I will not allow any laws to be passed that I vote for. I will vote against any laws that create gun registries or require additional fees to purchase a gun. I promise to work for personal responsibility, liberty, and freedom. And government does not grant our rights, and that's something we all need to realize. Our rights are granted by God. I promise to continue to pay my taxes, whether it's income, payroll, property, business taxes. All my taxes are paid. I promise to only vote for laws that will apply to everyone in the state. It will apply to every citizen. I will not vote for any law that will exempt legislators. I promise not to engage in business as usual to everyone in the state. And I promise not to be another establishment politician. I want to thank the people of the unseen heroes in every election, the candidates' children and the candidates' wives. I want to especially thank my wife, Kathy Stover, and my children, Katie, Chloe, and Mackenzie. It's always tough being involved in these elections, especially when you're being attacked. As always, I'm available via cell phone at 404-890-0026. My phone number is on every piece of literature that I send out. I expect your phone calls. I'm not here to hide from you. I want to work with you and hear your voice. I humbly ask for your vote March 5th.
Thank you, sir. We're going to start with our first question. Both of you touched on this, obviously. We're going to talk about some of the issues and ask you to talk a little bit about your position on the issues. But let me ask both of you what you are hearing. You've had the opportunity now for, I think, about a month and a half, almost 2 months, to do a good bit of campaigning around District 71. What are you hearing from voters, the one or two issues as you meet with people? What are you hearing are the issues for state government that are most important to them? Mr. Stover, we'll start with you.
Now, what I hear from people typically is they want to make sure that public education is taken care of. I am there for public education. They want to make sure that charter schools are started properly and that the oversight is proper on those. They want to make sure that their gun rights are protected. They want to make sure that the government does not continue to tax out of control. They want to make sure that there's no new taxes put on them on a regular basis. We have another bill coming up that's going to replace T-Splots, or be the baby brother of T-Splots, if you will, to allow adjoining counties to go together. I have an issue with that. It's another taxation bill. We've got to stop taxing the citizens, allow them to keep the money in their pocket. It's time for liberty and freedoms to take place of government and taxes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Crimes.
Thank you. Through the last 6 weeks, I've learned a great deal from many of the people I've met. There are obviously concerns and issues with the ethics, the education, which are terribly important and take lots of time to make sure we make the right decision. The ethics bill initially had some concerns that were going to make it difficult for the constituents to talk to their representatives, and so they're working through that, do that correctly. The one thing I can continue to hear is that we need a unifying voice to represent Coweta County. We need someone who can go up there and represent this county well, and not go up there with unrealistic expectations that are going to get in the way of being successful in reaching a resolution in all these important issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stover, rebuttal?
I can promise you I'll be that voice. I'll be the voice of reason. I will listen to your concerns, and I'll respond to your concerns. Thank you.
Mr. Crimes, rebuttal? All right. We're going to, our next question will go to you, Mr. Crimes. It's a follow-up question to your opening statements. Both of you referenced your work and life experience. Take about a minute each and expand on that a little bit. Tell us how your life's work experience, your business experience, or civic experience will likely guide your decision-making as a Georgia General Assemblyman.
Well, initially, I own a business. I've owned a business for 17 years. I've created many jobs. There's nothing more fulfilling than to have a job, and that is the number one focus right this minute, is to get people back to work. Most all the issues that are out there can be better served if people are working and they have income and they're successful. The civic things I've done is that I've worked with the county commission. I've worked with the Chamber of Commerce. I know the different leaders in the area that if I find an issue that I'm not familiar with or need more information on, I can go to the sheriff and say, what is your take on this? Give me your side of this. So I can ask many different people to get many different insights before we make an important decision, so that I'm not just listening to one side and picking one focus. I'm listening to a wide variety of people and making sure that I'm making the best decision for District 71. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stover.
I haven't worked for anyone since I was 24. I'm a small business owner, too. You know, I managed one of the fastest growing companies in the country. We made number 33 on Inc. 500. I think that I have the skills necessary to manage a budget. I think I have the skills necessary to manage people. I also have the relationships with the current elected officials to make sure that we can get things done, to make sure they can call me on the phone and I can talk with them. Lynn Westmoreland, Mike Crane, Bob Blackburn, you know, it goes on and on. I've got a great relationship with Rodney Brooks. I know the commissioners. Sure, I don't get along with 100% of them, but, you know, that's going to happen. We're not always going to agree on every issue. I have no problem with anyone. And I'm happy to talk about anything with anybody. So while we may not always agree on the issues, I will listen to them and and listen to their voice. I'll make sure that what they're saying, I'm hearing. I'm going to take notes, and I'm going to consider everything that they said. So I believe that I have the management skills necessary to both run an office, which at the Capitol as a legislator, you really don't have an office. You got an office, but there's no staff that's yours. But I know how to manage my paperwork. I know how to manage the bills. And I've been reading bills now for over a decade and helping people decide whether or not they should be voted on.
Mr. Grimes, rebuttal? Have one other question to sort of follow up. This first part of this, we're going to go to Mr. Stover first. And this actually came from an attendee at last month's forum. We didn't have a chance to ask this question then, but I've had someone else ask me as well if I could make sure I ask this. If elected to the Georgia General Assembly, would your current job, your livelihood, allow you to fully commit yourself to the session and to constituent services in the coming 2 years? And can you foresee any possibility of not being able to complete your term? Mr. Stover.
I cannot see any possibility of not being able to complete my term. I have plenty of people who work for me that can cover my job as I'm not there. I can also work weekends and nights, and I do that on a regular basis anyway, so it's nothing new for me. I'm not worried about getting this covered in addition to getting my business covered as well. So I have plenty of people to rely on, plenty of people that do work for me and do work for me on a regular basis. I know I have people I can trust. I will be there all the way through the session, and I don't plan to be there for one session. I plan to be there for at least 2. So again, that's up to the voters to decide, but my intention is at least 2. So I think I'm perfectly well set to get up there, manage my business, and manage my job as a legislator.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Grimes.
Prior to making this decision to run for this, my wife and I spent several weeks to make sure this was a good decision. We've evaluated my company, the people that have worked for me for 15 plus years, and sat down and met with them and explained what was going to have to be different because of the being committed for the 40 days and then so on, and as much as it takes to be there. This is an important job that must be taken seriously. You can't run for it and then not want it. You wouldn't be standing up here tonight if you didn't really want this. We've evaluated everybody that works for me, and they're as committed as I am to step up, to do what needs to be done, to run the day-to-day business in my absence so that I can take this position.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stover, rebuttal. Move on to our next question. First of a series of questions about the issues for the evening. And yes, I apologize with our 2 people. You're right back up, Mr. Grimes. You are going to be first here. It's on the state's economy. Georgia, like all other states, have been greatly affected by the ongoing recession and recovery such as it is. State unemployment has exceeded, I believe, the national unemployment rate consistently throughout the entirety of this recession. In your opinion, is Georgia a competitive state in terms of attracting investment and growing businesses? What more should our state government do to best promote economic prosperity for businesses and citizens in Georgia?
Well, we're fortunate. District 71 is as strong as any district in this state. We're fortunate to have so many great things and great opportunities with education and health care. With regard to the state, fortunately, we have a balanced budget amendment or constitution. We have to balance the budget. We are fiscally a sound state. We have a strong bond rating. I believe it is one of only 8 that has a AAA bond rating. That is a huge deal in the world right this minute. What Georgia says counts, and we can attract real business to come here because of that. We have done great jobs with transportation and getting businesses to relocate here because we are a strong state, a strong county, and with a good workforce, specifically in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stover.
Georgia is a great state. We have one of the least regulated business environments in the country. We have one of the strongest business environments, just period. I mean, we're in the top 10 right now, according to CNBC. That tells me that we're strong. I would like to take us to number 1. We can get there. Georgia's a great place to live. It's got a great environment. It has great people. It's got great education systems. Let's promote Georgia. We can grow more jobs here than any other state in the country. People talk about Texas. I think we're better than Texas, and I think we can be even better. So I feel like Georgia is a wonderful place to live. District 71 is a great place. We have a lot of great people here. We have a great school system here in Coweta County, and I'm proud to say that I've put all three of my children through that school system. They've all excelled in college. I've got one who's a senior in high school this year, and I have no doubt that she'll excel as well. But my other two have excelled extensively in college, one of which actually received a full-ride scholarship for her PhD, a 5-year program. I attribute that directly to our education system here in Coweta County.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Crimes, rebuttal? We'll move on to our next question, somewhat related, and this one is going to go to Mr. Stover first. Georgia state revenues have fallen from about $22 billion, roughly speaking, in 2008 to just over $18 billion, I believe, at their lowest point, or back up a little over $19 billion now. As you both have mentioned tonight, Georgia has a balanced budget amendment that's helped us avoid some of the significant indebtedness of many other state governments during this recession, but the decline in revenues obviously makes for some very difficult choices sometime in the state budget. And that's what I wanted to ask you. What are your priorities in the state budget? What are your priorities in managing a tight state budget as a legislator? And I would go to you first, Mr. Stover.
Well, I think we have to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in the state. When you get down to it, we've got a Medicaid program that is greatly abused. And I'm not saying that the patients are abusing it. They're being abused by the providers. That's the problem. It's not the patients. The patients are good people. The providers are double billing, triple billing. They're telling people that their children have 9 and 10 cavities when there's no cavities in their mouths. It's an issue. We need to go after those providers. That will help our Medicaid budget, which are enacting this extra extra hospital tax on, which I guess we're reinstating it technically, even though it's a new tax since it has to be reinstated. But, you know, we've got to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse. The EBT program is greatly abused. You're talking about something where you can take a card into a liquor store and purchase food items. I have never seen a liquor store in my life that has good quality food items. Why would you allow an EBT card to be used there? I don't believe it should be used at a convenience store. They're in there buying gum and they're buying candy bars. What good is that really doing for them? We need to control the EBT cards. We also need to enact the fair tax. I believe that enacting the fair tax will increase our revenues. It will not decrease our revenues because we'll be paying taxes. Everyone in the state will be paying taxes versus just a select few. Right now we have people who are in the state that don't live here full time, so they're not paying any taxes for being here. We've got illegal aliens who don't pay taxes for being here. And we have people who earn their money in an illegal manner who aren't paying taxes. The fair tax will take care of that for us.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Crimes.
The fair tax is a great idea. It is going to take lots of extensive research in order to implement it to make it work. In the interim, we've got to pay attention to what we're doing. We've got to pay attention to where we're spending our money. The waste it can be controlled. As in my business, when times got tough, we sat down and looked at every item to make sure it was vital to survival. And you go down line by line and you look at a line and you realize, is it best being spent? Dollars are precious. We need to make sure that we don't continue to go back to ask more from people. Let's use the dollars we have. Many of the revenue problems will be alleviated when jobs are created. That's why jobs are so vital. The more people that are working, the more people that are paying taxes, the more revenue coming into the state, so that it will help offset some of these expenses. They need to, I think wisely, they step back from the stadium deal. They need to not go get luxuries. Let's stay focused on the specifics that are important right this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stover, rebuttal?
The fair tax is the most well-researched tax plan that there is in the country. It's been implemented in other places in the world. It works. It works. It's more well-researched than our current tax code. Our current tax code is a convoluted mess of mismatched favors for one group while taken from another group. We've got to cut this stuff out. The fair tax will fix that problem.
Mr. Crimes, rebuttal? Our next question is on healthcare generally, although it may pick up a little bit of some of the issues y'all just discussed. Georgia General Assembly has recently passed, and Governor Nathan Deal signed last Wednesday, a continuation of the hospital provider fee, the bed tax, fee on hospitals that provides matching federal dollars for Georgia's Medicaid program. Governor Deal has also indicated Georgia will not participate in the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and that expansion of Medicaid here in the state of Georgia, saying the participation in the program would cost the state about $4.5 billion over 10 years. I'm afraid that's unaffordable. Where do you stand on this? Where do you see the state of healthcare and funding healthcare in Georgia now? Where do you see it going over the next several years? And we're going to allow up to 2 minutes on this question. Yeah.
The bed tax, it's a simple name now that everyone understands it. It was a necessary evil. It was a means to get funds from the federal level to help offset the less fortunate counties that don't have the ability to have full paying customers, patients. It is, you have donor hospitals and hospitals that are paying more than they're getting. It is a necessary evil. My concern with that, from what I understand, is not being implemented by the legislature. There is the Department of Health is regulating that, and that concerns me that a tax is being levied that is not someone that is responsible to the voting public. But it is in place, so that's where we're going. With regard to the affordable health care, the Obamacare, it is, I think the state needs to be very reluctant to give away and participate in that with the amount of money that is going to that's going to be needed in order to make it function correctly. It has been called a tax by the Supreme Court. It's the largest tax ever. I guess it will be. It is a not well thought out tax that we've all got to live with. And Georgia is slow to implement because we want to understand it. It was 1,200, 1,800 pages, however long the bill was. And it divides out into so many facets of business that so few understand it. We're just now beginning to understand the bill from what I understand, or the law. And we're trying to figure out, let's be slow and patient. Granted, health care is a vital asset that we need to take care of and need to address, but we need to do it in a way that is responsible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stover.
Chapter 5 of the IRS tax code implements Obamacare in many ways. It's really, quite frankly, a really disgusting thing. When you look at it, and they're charging 12% tax on a truck body because they need money for health care. They're charging taxes on fishing tackle. They're charging taxes on tires. Where's this stuff come from? What do any of those items have to do with Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act? My answer is they don't have anything to do with it. That's why we have to push Obamacare out. We cannot allow it to be implemented in the state in any shape or form. It cannot be implemented through the federal exchange, and it should not be implemented through the state exchange. We've got to push it out of here. There are better methods for fixing the healthcare system. An 18-page debacle is not the one to do it with. 1,800-page, excuse me. But any bill that someone stands up at a podium and says, you've got to read the bill before you pass it, or you've got to pass the bill before you read it, excuse me, that's obviously a bad bill. You've got to read the bills before you pass them. You need to know every in and out of every bill before you pass it. We still don't know all of Obamacare. We're still finding out stuff about Obamacare. We need to nullify Obamacare. With regards to the bed tax, an unregulated agency handling our taxation is just wrong. It's supposed to originate in the House of Representatives. This bill originated in the Senate, and their argument is that, well, we're actually pushing it off onto another agency, so we're not actually originating a tax bill. That's not right. That's not what we're supposed to do. Any taxes levied are supposed to go through the House of Representatives. That's where they need to start, and then they end in the Senate, and they can come back to the House for any changes that the Senate makes. That's fine. But it has to originate in the House.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Crimes, rebuttal? We'll move on to our next question then. Mr. Stover, again, you're going to be the first one up on this, and it's about transportation infrastructure. As you've both alluded to once or twice, I think, tonight, voters in Coweta County and throughout the counties that make up the Three Rivers Regional Development Commission roundly rejected the regional 1-cent transportation special local option sales tax, or TSPLOST. Sales tax, pardon me, or TSPLOST. So did most of the other RDCs across the state. Given where we are right now, given that we do have transportation needs in the state, I would please disagree with me if you will, but transportation needs here in Coweta County, how do we go about handling our transportation infrastructure at this point?
Well, here in Coweta County, we're funding it through SPLOST. We've got a lot of money coming in through SPLOST. It's paying for the hospital exit. It's paying for the road resurfacing. We're digging our roads down to the dirt and resurfacing them. We've got money for transportation here. I'm not saying that's a bad thing to resurface roads that way. They stay much better shape that way. But we've got money coming in Coweta County. T-Splots, quite frankly, needs to be repealed. It's a bad bill. There's a 30% penalty because we did not pass it. That's not right. You can't penalize somebody because they don't pass a tax on themselves. It's the most disgusting thing I think I've ever seen in government, or, well, Obamacare maybe, but, you know, it's quite frankly, it's a bad bill. We've got to do away with it. There are better ways to fund transportation. The gas tax is our third largest revenue source in the state of Georgia. We have money. We've got money there. It needs to be used responsibly. We've got to use it on the right projects. We've got to use it with the right contractors. We've got to manage our money well.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Crimes.
I was not a proponent of the T-Splost by any means. I helped the chamber realize my disagreements with it and was very vocal against it. I agree that penalizing for not voting on something is the wrong way to go about it. However, just to undo it, you got to take into account what happened to the counties and areas and regions that did put it in place. So nothing is ever simple. There's always a downside to making a decision. It was a bad bill when it started. It should have never come out for vote, but it did. We voted it down. We've got to figure out transportation. It was apparent it needs to be a regional issue. Regionally, Coweta County, or community issue, county issue. We are in better shape than many counties because we've had the forethought to allocate the money and plan ahead. We can't just continue to wait on money coming from Atlanta and things like that. You've got to continue to work. The SPLOST funds the majority of this, and it has kept our roads in good shape. The fuel tax seems to be a good way to fund a majority of this, but we're going to have to be more creative about how to do it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stover, rebuttal?
I'm proud to say I led the charge against T-Splots in Coweta County. We distributed well over 12,000 flyers through the Tea Party group here. We organized about 40 people to go out and put the flyers on the mailboxes around the county. We did a good job. We beat that bill with 77.48%. There are better ways to fund transportation than T-Splots. T-Splots does need to be repealed, and I understand that it has been implemented in certain counties, but it needs to be shut down. They can switch it over to a SPLOST fund within their county to manage their road infrastructure that they need.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Crimes? Move on to our next question. Mr. Crimes, I believe we are going to start with you on this. Next couple of questions are about education. Did you support, I guess it's a past tense, and I apologize for that, but did you support the Constitutional Amendment 1 on this year's ballots, authorizing the state to approve and fund charter schools without approval by local boards of education?
Yes, I did. I thought that parents need to be able to have choices for their education, for their children. The education is vital to the future of the workforce, to everyone in the area. We have to have well-educated children who become adults, who become citizens in the community. There are many ways that you can educate children. The public school system does a fantastic job in this county. They take every student, whether they want them or not. They take them, they educate them, they take care of them, they get them to the next level. There are charter schools, there are private schools, there are home schools. They are all good options. What we can't do is erode the public school by funding these different options. We need to stay focused that the public school is vital to educating the mass of people, because They have to, and it makes our community better and stronger. But I am in complete favor of choice, and look forward to seeing how that works out.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stover.
I was absolutely a proponent of charter schools. I think charter schools are vital to competition in the marketplace. When you look at the school systems now, we have a great public school here in Coweta County. Not every county has that opportunity to have a great public school system. South Georgia is a mess. They're underfunded. They can't get enough money in their schools because their tax bases are so small. We've got to take care of them just like we take care of ourselves. Charter schools are a way to do that. There's more state funding that goes down to those individual charter schools in those rural areas. It will help improve the education in that area. If we improve the education across the state of Georgia, we'll move our graduation rate up from the last in the country up to the top 10. We can't stay where we are currently. We're number 48 in education in the country. We've got to propel it forward. We're lucky. We're very lucky to be in Coweta County. I moved to Coweta County. I moved back to Coweta County because of the school system. I'm very proud of our school system.
Thank you, sir. Rebuttal, Mr. Crimes? I'm going to ask you really, in a sense, to kind of continue those thoughts on education for a few moments. Mr. Stover, we'll start with you. But about K through 12 education, and in fact, you kind of set up exactly what my next question was going to be. There's just such a diversity of educational quality in the state of Georgia. Both of you referred to the Coweta County school system as an excellent school system. I think next door Fayette County, for example, has an excellent school system. And you can certainly identify many of those across the state. And yet we also have some tremendously underfunded, perhaps, South Georgia school systems that have very little tax base to operate on. We have some very wealthy, large school systems that have also had corruption problems, Atlanta City Schools, for example, and so forth, or loss of accreditation. Given that diversity where you have some very poor, underperforming school systems, some very well-performing school systems, and some very well-funded but still poorly performing school systems, how do you deal with education in the state of Georgia, in your opinion? And we'll start back with you.
A lot of it's going to go back to parents. I mean, quite frankly, there are good parents and there are bad parents. The education for children starts at home. It is not 100% up to the public education system to educate your children. You've got to give them a good foundation when they get there. You've got to discipline the children. They need to understand what discipline is. They need to not be warring with the teachers when they're at school. That's a lot of the problems in places like downtown Atlanta. You've got kids in there who act up and they're not paying attention to the teacher, and the teacher can't do anything because the teacher will get sued. We've got an issue with that. Parents are willing to sue the school system because their kids are acting up. That's not the way to handle things. In Atlanta, we spend nearly, I believe it was $11,000 and some change per student. So it's a lot of money. They're very well funded up there. We've got to stop teaching for tests. I think right now we spend too much time on No Child Left Behind, which, we're now off of that. We're going into Common Core. Common Core is going to be the next mess that we get into. It's not the answer to the education problem.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Crimes.
Well, I watched this firsthand with my wife. She is a pre-K teacher at Northside, as I mentioned. The amount of regulation she has to fill out is amazing. She spends more than half her time filling out paperwork to document what may be needed down the road. Let's try to focus on the child. Let's focus on the children and focus on holding their parents accountable. As David said, the parents have to buy into this. It is their responsibility. It's not the school's responsibility to raise these children. I do think that the state can help only at a certain level. I think that the local boards understand the needs and the desires more so than what's decided in Atlanta. You can't have Atlanta dictating what's going on in South Georgia, in Coweta County, wherever it is. They need to let the local boards make the decisions and figure out what's best for them and what works. What works here may not work in South Georgia. So we need to keep all the options open and keep the local boards engaged in success for the children.
Thank you, sir. Rebuttal, Mr. Stover.
And that leads directly into the Common Core argument. We're allowing the federal government to dictate what our local schools do. Local control. We need local control over our school systems. We don't need Common Core. We don't need the federal government telling us what to do. We know better what our children need than they do. We've got to get back to the business of education. We've got to get away from the business of regulation. Montessori has it right. You have children who are excelling, they get to continue to excel. You have kids who are not excelling, they get brought up to the level. The whole class does not get held behind while you're teaching these 3 or 4 kids to keep them moving forward. This side moves up, this side moves up, and they end up on the same level by the time they get out of the second grade, the third grade, the fourth grade. You continue to push these kids. They're not just set free on the world whether they have an education or not.
Thank you, sir. Rebuttal, Mr. Crimes? We're going to move on to our last 2 questions before we get to closing statements. And we're going to start this one with Mr. Crimes. And really, I'm going to ask you what you might like, what issue you might like to bring up. We've talked about a number of issues tonight, taxes and budget and transportation and education. As is always the shortcoming in a forum like this, we might end up not being able to talk about some issues that y'all want to. Is there a particular issue that you would like to bring up that we haven't, perhaps our college system or DTAE, immigration, or anything like that, anything that you might like to bring up as an issue or something that you're hearing a good deal about we haven't talked about tonight?
Well, the big focus that I continue to hear is education. Obviously, it is one of the foremost important things of why we're doing this and why we're involved with this. It's to harp on what we just said. We need to stay at the forefront of our focus in what we do. I do think the ethics reform bill is an important thing. I think the people that elect us need to feel that we are representing them, and there's no question that we're doing it for the right reason. I think that it needs to be as transparent so that we can worry about being decision makers and representing the district, and the district believe in what we do and believe we're doing it in the right reason and believe we're doing it to unify and make a better place. And if there's any question that we're not doing it for the right reason, that's a concern. And you look at the approval ratings of Congress, and it's like lower than low. I wouldn't want to pick anything lower than a contractor. But we need to make sure that people value their representative and that their representative is representing them, because we're making rules that end up people have to follow. So they need to have confidence in what we are deciding. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stover, same question.
Well, we lose more freedoms at the local level than we do anywhere, and that includes at the state. You know, it flows from the county up to the state. We've got to protect our freedoms in this country. We've got to allow people to keep their paychecks. They should not be taxed out of their paycheck. Let them pay at the register. It'll make things better for families. They can decide when they want to pay a tax and when they can't. They'll only pay tax whenever they buy a luxury item. You know, if they buy a TV, if they buy an air conditioner. If they're buying food and they're buying utilities or they're buying drugs, the fair tax won't tax them on it. That's a great system. The basic necessities in life have no taxation, instead of the money being sucked out of your paycheck every week. Think about what you could do. Think about how much money you could save every year. We're not going into forced taxation. It's voluntary taxation. We've got to get back to fiscal responsibility. We do have a balanced budget amendment here in this state, and that's a great thing. The problem is we use bonds to purchase property. We use bonds to build stadiums. We use bonds to do all sorts of things in the state. So the balanced budget is a little bit of a misnomer when you get down to it. We're balancing the budget, but we're borrowing money to balance the budget because we've got these projects that we've got to do. We've got to get back to fiscal responsibility. No stadium, no $200 million out of the taxpayers' pockets, no billion-dollar stadium, whatever the cost is going to be. Nobody can decide. The infrastructure improvements around the stadium, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in roads again. Nobody knows what the true cost is. Nobody knows where the money is going to come from. Fiscal responsibility. That's one of the biggest problems we have, and we've got to get back to it.
Thank you, sir. Rebuttal, Mr. Crimes? Then you're right, Mr. Stover is still up. We'll move on to our last question of the evening, another submitted question, and it is really sort of a philosophical question about what you think is the most important thing to bring to the Georgia General Assembly, and that is, what single personality or character trait do you think is most important in a state legislator, and how does it apply to you? How do you think you bring that to the office of state legislature?
Well, I think an open attitude, a willingness to listen. I have both of those. I'm willing to listen to anybody. You know, you're not always going to agree with what I say. I'm not always going to agree with what you say. But if we talk, there's common ground typically. Let's find that common ground. I can do that. That's the type of person I am. I'm not a combative person. I'm a very happy-go-lucky guy for the most part. Some people call me too laid back, in fact, many times. I get passionate about certain issues, sure. You know, over taxation, that makes me passionate. I get upset. But, you know, for the most part, somebody can sit here and they can cuss me up one side and cuss me down the other. I'll sit there and look at them and go, you know, that's really great. You feel better? Do you feel better? So I can speak to the citizens. I have no problem listening. I have no problem finding out what it is that they're concerned with. I'm good at that. I think you'll find that I'm quite the people person if you come and get to know me.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Crimes, same question.
I will bring 17 years of job-creating business experience. I have a level head. I'm in the contracting business. We deal with all sorts of issues every day, day in and out. You listen to all the different moving parts. You hear all the information. You make the best decision of what you got. That is how I will represent this state and this district in the future. I know how to create jobs. I've created hundreds of them and watched them be created. I will bring that. I will bring a ability to listen to what people say, decipher the information, and make the best possible decision. I will reach out to people on all sides so that I can figure out what the right answer is, so that I can represent this district in the right way. I will listen to everyone because it's not as simple, this is it, if it's not this, it's not going to happen. You've got to listen to all ideas and use all the information and make the best possible decision you can. That's why I run my business, and that's the way I'll run this district if so lucky. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Stover, rebuttal? We're going to move on in just a moment to our closing statements, but before we do, I just wanted to say a couple of things very quickly. First of all, thank you to our audience. Y'all have been a great audience, and we really appreciate you coming here tonight and being just a model audience here in this forum. I also like to thank, once again, Canongate and White Oak on Canongate for hosting us here tonight, and thank, again, the Chamber of Commerce and the Coweta County Republican Party for hosting this here tonight. But most of all, I'd like to thank our candidates again for being here and for running for office. We appreciate it. We appreciate your dedication, and we appreciate you coming out tonight. So thank you very much for that. With that, we're going to move on to our closing statements, and we'll start with Mr. Crimes, a 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. Again, thank you for everyone coming. This is a big deal. Being heard and being representative is, I've come to appreciate more in the last 6 weeks than you can ever imagine. Trying to get people to engage and go out and be heard, whether you're for me or against me. This is what makes this country great. I want to thank Canongate and the Chamber and the Republican Party, and especially everyone for coming out tonight. It's a clear choice in the people that are up here. We have very similar goals and beliefs. It's how you portray that belief, how you work with other people to get to resolutions so that we move forward in a positive direction. We are both conservatives, but I think one of us can reach across any issue so that we can come to a positive answer and move forward. I'm invested in this community. I live here. I plan to spend the rest of my life here. I'm going to represent this community in the absolute best way that I know possible. I will make every decision I make with this community in mind, this district in mind, and my family in mind. I plan to serve this district as I would any other thing, with my complete attention. I'm running for this seat to bring real world, real life experience to every decision that's going to be made. I appreciate everybody showing up. I would appreciate everyone's vote on March 5th. Early voting starts Saturday. Go be heard. That is what I've learned the most out of this. We had 7% show up out of Coweta County and 2% out of Fayette County. Go stand up and cast your ballot, hopefully for me, but be heard. It's an important right that we've worked so hard for in this country, and I appreciate it more now than I ever have before. I hope you cast your vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stover.
Again, thank you to everyone coming tonight. It's been a privilege to stand here before you and tell you what I believe. I can't wait to hear from you guys and what you'd like to see happen in the state of Georgia. I think that's of the utmost importance. I have, too, over 20 years of business experience. I bring that to the table. I have a lot of management experience. I know how to create jobs. I know how to grow jobs. I know how to grow an economy. My background has taught me that. I believe that if I'm elected, I will be the perfect voice for the people here. You know, I've been working with locally elected officials for over a decade. I've worked with them through the Tea Party. I've worked with them through the Kiwanis Club. I've worked with them through the Chamber. I've worked with them through many avenues. I've worked with them on bills. I've helped look at legislation and tell them this is the problem in the legislation. I've helped reach across aisles. I've spoken to both sides of every issue. I've invited people on the other side of the aisle to come speak to us and tell us why they feel the way that they feel in our Tea Party group. You know, I've been there. I've done that. And I will continue to do it if elected. I'm endorsed by Senator Mike Crane. I'm endorsed by U.S. Congressman Lynn Westmoreland. I'm endorsed by State Representative Delvis Dutton, Jeff Chapman, Charles Gregory, Ed Setzler, Sam Teasley. I'm also endorsed by Education Leader Dean Demos. I think you'll find that I have a track record of working with people. And I will bring that experience to this seat. I humbly ask for your vote on March 5th.
Thank you, Mr. Stover. Again, thank you, Mr. Crimes. Good luck to both of you on March 5th. And again, thank you very much for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. Good night.